why I was confused. I didn't know if it was my month or not. It's, 7:01. Ooh, we're late.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting and a motion to close part of the meeting. December 18th, 2018. We have a moment of silence. Ms. Pierce.
I'm doing it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any comments from the public? State your name and
Good evening, Edward Collins. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I appreciate you entertaining my thoughts and comments this evening. I'm actually the founder of Burlington Mattress Company and the owner of 1800 Burlington, founder and owner of Repeal 18th, and also Collins Cook Realty. Collins Cook Realty was previously located at 2005 Burlington, and I'm in the process of closing on that building right now. We opened up Burlington Mattress Company in North Kansas City in 2010. And we kind of put our roots in this community because it felt like home. And over the last 8 years, it was home. You know, the members of this community, the people that are here, the support that we got as a small business was absolutely incredible. We took that from handwritten signs that we had in the windows that you guys may have seen when we first started to 43 locations across the United States. 4 years ago, we're the 43rd fastest growing company in the United States, thanks to what we started here with you. We sold about a year and a half ago, and I hope you'll shake your heads yes at this time. When I say I was way too young to retire, so we started a residential commercial real estate business. And we also started a restaurant and bar at Repeal 18th at 1825 Buchanan. I don't know what the hell I was thinking at the time when I started a bar, but we did it. It's one of those childhood dreams as a boy I think everybody has. And when you get in there, you realize it's a little bit more difficult to run than people just bellying up to a bar and having some drinks. It comes with a lot of responsibilities, but it also comes with things that we consider to be basic infrastructure and support to support commerce. And one of those things is parking. There is none. There is some street parking that usually gets consumed over there through other businesses around there. You know, I think we all underestimated the vision of Chicken and Pickle and the impact that would have on this community, and especially the impact that would have on deleting those parking spots that other businesses relied upon in that corridor. You know, as a small business owner, we're just kind of back to that. Parking is key for everything. It's a service that we rely on, that we need to have to bring people into our communities to get us to use the businesses we have. I'm here both to speak on behalf of allowing that lot to become a parking lot, but also to understand a little bit about why there's dissension and why we're having a debate over a parking lot becoming a parking lot. Very few of you have probably driven up the streets of any city or any avenue or any road in any part of this country and turned your head at any point and said, oh my God, that looks disgusting, or that's an eyesore, when identifying simply people parking their cars. You know, if the intent is the Uberization of this city into bird scooters and people riding around on scooters with no place to park their vehicles, I can understand the dissension that may have to this vote. But if the intent is for people of our generation, I'm not riding a bird scooter. I'll give you that right now. And I'm not sure if other people on the council will ride those. But if the intent is to bring people of our generation back into this city, to start spending their money here, to start supporting us with the tax dollars, parking is a necessity. It's something that we need. As a small business owner right there, it's the biggest thing, biggest challenge for us. At 2005 Burlington, we grew from 1 real estate agent to 65. And guess what? We ran out of parking. We moved our location from North Kansas City on the real estate side up to Briarcliff. We're going to be at 100 agents next month. I hope to be able to come back in North Kansas City because this is home. This is where I want to put my roots, where I want to spend my money. I want to be here, but I need the help of this council to pass this bill to allow this parking lot to go in.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
So you don't mind if parking is paid or free?
I do not. Matter of fact, I'd be willing to pay for it for my patrons if there's a validation method for me to get them in there because they'll be spending money inside my facility.
You know, when this first came up, I was against it because, you know, there is a plan for Burlington. There's hundreds of hours have been spent on, and that was not one of them. However, I've read this over and over all week leading up to this, and I have changed my mind for the following reasons. There's a good possibility that we will lose the parking at 18th and Swift for a time period during the possible construction. And when we do, that's going to really hurt the businesses on 18th Street if they don't have at least, and this is not anywhere near the size probably. If it stays just like it is, and it looks like crap, to tell you the truth.
Yes, it does.
With those barriers. But with the stipulations that the staff provided, I think it could look nice. And if we don't, in my way of thinking, after studying on it for all week, if we say no, it's going to look just like it is for maybe another 20 years. And what good is that? If it comes down 20 years from now and we need to redevelop that area, a parking lot would be a lot easier to do away with than a building or something else. So I did do a flip. I think this is probably something we're going to be needing because if we don't and we lose 18th and Swift for a period of time, it's not going to go away. We're going to really hear it from the businesses, and I don't blame them. So anyway, I've changed my mind, and I'm going to be for the.
Well, I'm going to vote for it too. I visited with River North individuals. I reached out to Joe Gower today. They're in favor of it with some questions, which I'll bring up when we actually have the agenda item. I like your idea, Mr. Collins, of the validated parking. Hadn't heard anybody talk about that you'd be willing to pay for your customers to use it. I have no problem with changing the corridor for this particular project. I don't think everything always has to be completely, in concrete, no pun intended. But it is unattractive, and as I understand it, there'll be 77 spaces in there. That's a lot of parking down there for that area. And we can't keep inviting people into our community and businesses in and not provide parking for them. So
Thank you.
I'm in favor of it.
I couldn't agree more with the two council people that spoke. Parking is a precious thing for our city to have, and I would be complete in agreement unless something horrible came up that would dissuade me from voting yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. One more parting comment before I go, and it's a quote. The time is now to seize the opportunity by strengthening what is already working in the community, creating vibrant destinations, attracting new investment, and managing positive change. That will help and achieve our vision for North Kansas City. That's a quote from the master plan here in North Kansas City. Guys, we're asking to bend a little bit on this, not to break, and we're asking for your help and support as a business community to give us the places for our customers to come park with us. And your vote would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Anybody? Mr. Lanning.
Just me. I'll keep it brief. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Richard Lanning. I'm here with David Back, a representative of the family, and we're here on behalf of that parking lot. And just a couple of things from me as the marketing director for that site for over 10 years. It's been a very difficult site to develop. It's 26,000 square feet. It's in the middle of the block. It fronts on Burlington. It also fronts on the east side on Buchanan. With the Burlington corridor overlay, we just haven't been able to find a use that would fit on that site. So we have the opportunity here to develop this parking lot, which will be a win-win for everybody. One, it's going to clean up the site. Two, the Backs are going to be able to put that property in use and create some value until a higher and better use comes along. And three, it's really going to help the businesses in that entertainment district. And so, convenient parking, I'll underscore convenient, is the lifeblood of these businesses here. And people will pay for that convenience. They really will. We have about a half a dozen days a year where the weather is conducive to walk, but otherwise, most people will pay for that convenience. And as you heard Ed say, that is the lifeblood to his business. And I had a call from Brad Hakes last week, the former wrestling space. They're out. They went out of business, and so he's marketing that space, and he called and he said he had a requirement that was going to require almost another 70 parking spaces in the evening, and it could be, later in the afternoon, which would really put stress on the parking that's already there. And I'd also like to remind the council that, I also represent Northtown Devco, and we have an agreement on our lot to allow the businesses to park there after hours. That is a temporary use permit. It's a month-to-month agreement. You can't count on that parking forever. I mean, we may redevelop our site, do something different that would require that parking in the evening. So I really think there's an opportunity for a win-win here, and we are very much in support of it and would appreciate your support. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what the cost of the parking will be? Because this is a concern, obviously, of the smaller business owners. Because if you're going in the Rhino, it costs $5 or $10 cover charge, and you're 21 years old, and you only have X amount of dollars, you're not going to be able to afford an expensive lot. So,
right. We're still trying to work out the pricing. So what we were thinking of is during the day it'd be very inexpensive, maybe $1 or $2 an hour or something like that. And then the evening would go a little bit up because that's where you get most of your business, really. We were thinking about a cutoff rate, like if somebody's there, say more than 3 hours, it just does a flat rate. Because one of the things that we're concerned about is, let's say somebody's out and they're having a good time at one of the bars, that that they don't want to go, oh well, maybe I should get my car and drive away because I don't want to pay the next hour. It's like no. It's like leave the car overnight, come back tomorrow, pick it up, you'll be fine. So, I mean, I think topping out at, let's say $5 during the day is not really a backbreaker for anyone coming for lunch or hanging out with friends for hours. I don't really see that.
during the day or in the evening?
During the day.
$5 during the day?
I think. I mean, like I said, we're working on it, but in my mind, I don't think that would be a backbreaker for anyone. I mean,
It might be, because lunch is fairly inexpensive in North Kansas City, depending on where you're going. $5 might be an issue. You might do some research on what's viable in regard what people are going to pay, or it'll be sitting empty, and then
Well,
that
right.
wouldn't do us any good either.
well, no, it doesn't do us any good. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do,
Yeah.
like I said, we're trying to work it out. I mean, the thing is, it's like you look at, let's say, Kansas City and see how they're doing things and what their rates are. And yes, they're higher because they're downtown Kansas City. And then you try to figure out what the draw would be. Like, my personal opinion, having been in the area, is during the day, let's say 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, it really doesn't seem that busy to me. I mean, I don't think we're going to get hardly anyone in that time frame, to be honest.
No, it'd be more evening and nighttime.
Right.
But you still need to, keep in consideration the cost. What it costs to actually be entertained here compared to what it costs to be entertained across the river is significantly less, as a general rule. And so should the parking prices be.
No, that's a
You're
point
gonna
well
pay
taken.
$10 for lunch.
Yeah. you're not
At least.
$5 to
At
park
least, yeah.
and $10 for lunch.
I know some of the people in my building, I was surprised, I mean, because like I live in Power and Light, and you figure all the options that you have in that general vicinity, and they talk about, I mean, in the hallways, hey, we're going Chicken Pickle, we're going, here, we're going there, and it's like, so from my point of view, it's kind of interesting that people would get in their car to drive away,
Right.
Instead of just walking out the door to a myriad of bars that are in the Power and Light district. So, I mean, it is a destination, so.
Well, we're a lot cooler than Power and Light.
Well said.
And a lot safer.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm Rich Groves with the North Kansas City Business Council, and I had decided to speak about this, but it seems like all the points I wanted to make were made by some of you as well as these others, but I'll just make it really brief. Obviously, there is a need for parking. We all agree about that. And I was so proud of the city and NT Realty and Richard to work out that cooperative agreement on that other parking lot. This, of course, is a different kind of deal, but it would address a similar kind of need. And as you said, the current use is, it looks ugly and it's a waste. And the final point I think it's important is also was mentioned that it doesn't have to be the permanent solution. It can be used for this, and if something better, if the market forces surface something better, it can be used in something better later.
Thank you.
I think you guys ought to quit until while you're ahead. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Consent agenda?
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I might point out that Timothy back there is here. Thank you for accepting this responsibility. And if you want a gun built, he's the guy to talk to. Okay, number 10.
Acceptance of police fire pension actuarial report, resolution number 18-078.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. In 2015, City Council adopted a resolution approving a funding policy for the Police Officers and Firefighters Pension Fund. And the policy provides essentially that the city will strive to maintain adequate asset levels and make contributions as recommended by the plan's actuary to keep the fund in good shape. The 2018 actuarial report for the pension fund has been completed by the firm of McLeod & Associates. And here tonight are both John Naylor and Tracy Christian of that company, and I believe Ms. Christensen will provide a summary of that report at this time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I believe you all have in your packets a quick summary of our valuation report this year. This is our annual report to the pension board about the funded status of the plan. I will keep this very brief because the news is good. What you have in front of you is a quick summary of the report. That first page shows a quick summary of demographics of the plan that have stayed relatively stable. Middle of the page there shows assets last year and this year. The bottom of the page shows the funded status of the plan. As of this year, and coincidentally, we are in exactly the same funded position we were in as of October 1 of 2017. As of 21-18, we are at 102.5% funded. So we have just a little bit more than what we need, which is a very nice position to be sitting in. But better than that, even, we have, with the work that the board did a few years ago, we made some changes to the plan when we felt like we were taking on water too quickly. This past year, we also did what we call an experience study, where we look at all of these numbers in here are built on assumptions. We're assuming how long people are going to work, when they might retire, if they might become disabled, once they retire, how long they might live. Those are all assumptions that we make. And so every once in a while, we take a look at everything that we've been assuming, and we compare that with what's actually been happening, and we make sure that our assumptions are panning out. Based on the study that we did this past May, we discovered that our withdrawal assumptions, the assumptions that we make regarding people who may leave employment before they reach retirement age, that those needed to be adjusted. And so with this valuation and with that adjustment, we are actually even in a little bit better position long-term. What we discovered was that we needed to increase the accrued liabilities for past service, but that going forward, we're actually anticipating a little bit higher turnover than we had been. And what that does, it serves to decrease what we call our normal cost.
Was the withdrawal rate more than what you projected?
For early years of employment, it is, and for younger ages, it is.
Oh, okay.
So once you reach a certain age, you're less likely to leave before retirement.
I see.
But our 20 to 30-year-olds, they may not stick around until retirement, and
Yes.
so
We've learned that, yes.
certainly, yeah, it makes sense, and what we discovered, based on the actual experience, we tweaked those assumptions to be more in line with what we were seeing. We had a discussion with the board about, because sometimes what we've seen in the past 5 to 10 years, there may be extenuating circumstances that say, well, but because of this or that, we don't anticipate, that going forward. But after discussions with the board, we made those changes with this valuation. And there at the top of the second page, you can see that our total recommended contribution, and that's after the employee contribution portion as well as the city's contribution, the recommendation of $422,000 is well more than covered by the anticipated tax revenues that we expect to see. And we expect to see that ongoing for at least the foreseeable future, that the recommendations will be less than our anticipated tax revenues. So I expect to be coming here, at least for the next foreseeable number of years, telling you that we don't have to ask the city council for an additional contribution to the plan, which is very good news.
It's a great visit.
So, yep. So there's a little more history there on the next few pages. You can see history of assets and accrued liabilities, a history of our recommended contributions. The significant drop in this year, again, is because we've shored up our assumptions a little bit. What you don't have here that's in our regular report, if you care to find that, is a projection of the next 20 to 30 years, where we do project out cash flows for the plan, benefits to be paid, investment earnings to be made, and it shows that for the foreseeable future, if everything goes according to plan, which it never does exactly, but if we can meet our actuarial assumptions, that we should be in a very well-funded position going forward.
Yeah, I remember 6 years ago when I came in here, this plan was $1 million short. And the city had to pony up the $1 million to get it back. And so in the last 6 years, I don't know what's happened, but you've done a good job.
Well, thank you. I can't really take credit for it.
Well, somebody has, Chief.
We've seen some really nice asset returns on our investments that have helped tremendously, tweaking the assumptions. And again, whenever we do an experience study, it's a bit of a risk because we don't really know until we study it whether we're meeting our assumptions, and making those changes can increase or decrease long-term costs. In the long run, it doesn't really change the cost of the plan. It just helps us better project and assume and calculate the anticipated costs of the plan for the board and for the city.
I think one thing the council can do, and this is based on the policy that we set several years ago, is make sure we are on call to contribute to the fund, and we're contributing that responsibility. And we're lucky, right, in these years that we don't have to. It's good for everybody, but we're always on call and should be always on call to contribute when needed. So you come back every year and you tell us we don't owe anything, then that's even better.
I would love to be able to do that every year.
Okay.
You're very welcome. Can I answer any questions?
Yeah, of course, these figures and all was done before December. That's my question. And surely the market has hurt this plan in the last month.
It's been a lousy quarter.
It has.
It really has.
Yeah.
A couple things I can say to maybe put your mind a little bit at ease. One, this is one bad quarter. It may be indicative of more bad news to come. It may not. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully, we'll see this is done as of a snapshot date of October 1, so we don't remeasure until October 1 of 19. And second thing I can tell you is that we implemented several years ago, many years ago, what we call an asset smoothing method, where we roll the gains and losses of assets in 20% a year. So what that does, again, it doesn't change the cost of the plan, but it allows a little bit of mitigation of the volatility of the markets. And so if we have a really good year, we're only going to recognize 20% of that at a time. If we have a really bad year, again, we're going to roll that in over a 5-year period. And so hopefully with gains and losses, that smooths out. It gives us a little bit of time to anticipate if we think we may need to make some changes. But it gives a little bit of time to the city, it gives a little bit of a heads up, but it doesn't make one really bad year or one really good year have too much of a significant impact on the long-term health of the plan.
That was my question as well about the market.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 11.
Chapter 100, Resolution of Intent, Apartment Complex in One North Area, Resolution number 18-074.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the city's financial advisor, Matthew Webster.
Good evening, Matt Webster with George K. Baum. This is part of the One North development, and I'll refer to the memo in your packet. The last page of that memo shows the site plan. Lot number 1, which is the extreme southern portion of the site, is programmed for a large multifamily project, specifically 240 units, to be called Backyard at One North, to be developed by O'Reilly Development, a well-known local developer here in Missouri. They have asked, and so we are here tonight to ask you on their behalf for a Chapter 100 tax abatement rather than the return of their property taxes through a tax increment overlay. As you'll recall, over the last couple of years, we've done a number of financing moves through the city council. One of those was to create a tax increment district. We have also done a Chapter 100 overlay, which allows for the tax-exempt purchase of construction materials. Specifically here, they are asking, though, for tax abatement on the project for 20 years. This is essentially the same ask that we got from the Old Chicago restaurant a couple of months ago. In terms of the economics of this, as to the city, it's neutral. It doesn't hurt or help the city any more than the TIF plan. TIF plans allow you to pay your property taxes and have those property taxes returned to you for part of the development. In this case, they are just asking not to pay the property taxes for that 20 years. There's a statutory process for Chapter 100. Customarily, the city requires a resolution of intent, which is we're asking for tonight. That allows the staff to file a Chapter 100 plan, which is required under state statute, and you have a 20-day notice period. So you file the plan and post it, and then you have 20 days, and then we would be back before the council for final approval of the Chapter 100. The Chapter 100 involves the issuance of bonds, and it involves the transfer of the property to the city in order to invoke the tax abatement. There is no financial risk in any of this to the city. The city is indemnified through these projects. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. But again, this is something that the council has done before on One North projects, and not something that I think invokes any sort of new issues, nor something that you should be particularly concerned about compared to prior actions. Thank you.
Got a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Number 12. No, Eric.
No, license agreement grading Golf Entertainment Center, bill number 7355, ordinance number 9155.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. The One North master developer is working with a golf entertainment facility operator to locate a golf entertainment facility in the area that's designated for that use in the One North redevelopment area, which is currently owned by the city. Prior to the city's transfer of the property, which isn't quite on the docket yet, the master developer has requested the ability to begin grading the property. As you may recall, we've done this a couple of times in the last few months. Burger King made that request. Old Chicago also made that request. And the council did enter into license agreements that would allow them to get onto the property and begin doing some grading work prior to the property being transferred. And those license agreements, always prepared, of course, by the city councilor, fully protect the city from any problems that may come in. And so there's no risk to the city by entering into this license agreement, which would allow them to get on the property to begin doing a little bit of early grading. So that is the request that's before you at this time. Rick Warner, master developer, is here if you have any questions.
I do.
First reading.
I got one.
I believe city councilor would like to add some comments.
There's two other items they're asking for, though, in this particular case. They're asking permission also for this license agreement to put a sign on there about what it would comply with our sign code, of course, and also to be able to park a large construction piece of equipment on there as well.
Where are we on this agreement?
Mr. Warner, would you like to come forward and provide an update to the council?
I mean, because it's starting to get around to me that people are asking me if this is still happening because they're
Sure,
telling me
Mr.
they're
Warner
hearing
can
somewhere that it's
report.
not.
So we're very close.
Okay, so
The equity people were here last week. The debt people were here last week. They're taking it to their underwriting committees between now and the end of the year. We think we're in great shape, but I don't have the final document signed.
that's all I needed. Thank you.
I have a question. Metro North is doing a similar project?
It's rumored that Metro North is doing a
Okay,
similar project.
so is it, are they, and I don't work at Metro North, but where are they at theirs? Because they've advertised it in publications and stuff over the last year, and they say they're in agreement. They were supposed to open in the summer, so I know they're as behind as we are. But I don't, if they're going to be two similar kinds of things, if that is indeed the case, I question how that's going to be a good idea. I mean, why have two within like 10 miles of each other, particularly if they do open theirs first? And I've had other people ask me the same thing because of the rumor of Metro North opening a very similar facility.
They have yet to acquire the technology needed to operate a facility.
I guess I did have one follow-up, Dan. Drive is not the one going. I mean, they're not interested in one in Metro North.
No, Drive's not going in
Okay,
Metro.
it is a separate entity.
Yeah,
That's, okay.
Okay.
Sounds like some proprietary information is
Yeah.
back there.
I have to be careful.
Was there a motion on the table?
Motion and a second on the floor.
I seconded.
Oh, yeah,
Who made the motion? Did you make the motion, Tom?
okay.
So we need an all in favor.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and North Kansas City Destination Developers, LLC, regarding certain authorized uses on real property owned by the city in the Armour Road redevelopment area, 1 North.
I move that bill number 7355 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9155.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman? Yes. Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and North Kansas City Destination Developers, LLC, regarding certain authorized uses on real property owned by the city in the Armour Road redevelopment area, 1 North.
Call the roll. Oh, did you? Oh,
Done with that.
oh, okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right. Number 13.
Economic Development Incentive Policy Revisions, Resolution Number 18-073.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. Last April, the City Council adopted an economic development incentive policy to provide guidance to property owners and developers who might be coming to North Kansas City and requesting incentives on how we would consider those public economic incentive tools. Since that time, since April, we have encountered a few situations which lead us tonight to recommend a few modifications to the policy that was adopted in April. I'd just like to go through those briefly at this time. The current policy provides that the city won't consider an abatement of more than 75% for the duration of the abatement period. We'd like to tighten that up a bit by proposing a revised policy that would establish that no abatement shall last longer than 25 years, and that it would establish ceilings of 75% for the first 10 years and 37.5% for the subsequent 15 years of any such abatement. These ceilings are reflecting what we are seeing around the metro with similar programs in other cities. Another change that we're proposing is that the current policy states that most favorable consideration will be given to community improvement districts, commonly known as CIDs, for commercial projects that are comprised of at least 35,000 square feet. Such CIDs are typically about a 1% additional sales tax that's then used by the property owner to make improvements to the property. The proposed revised policy states that the city will not normally consider a single address or property for designation for a CID unless such property is in excess of 35,000 square feet. We regard this as more of a clarification of what we proposed to you back in April. Do want to note that there is a petition that is before the city, which is currently scheduled to come to you on January 15th, which does not meet that criteria. In changing the policy tonight, we're not trying to move the goalpost. Want to clearly state that they did get their petition in. In fact, they got it in the day before the original policy was proposed. They regard that as very significant. Staff doesn't, but just did want to state that for the record. But we did want to bring changes to you tonight, and we do recommend this particular change. You can always deviate from anything that's in the policy, as I'll get to in a moment. A couple of other relatively minor changes. The city formed an industrial development authority in October of 2017. This policy simply discusses the fact that that IDA now exists and makes clear that it is potentially available as a conduit for development and redevelopment projects as it is serving One North now. Also, as you may recall, we have been designated as an opportunity zone. That's a federal program. It's actually a tax program that the city is not granting an incentive in an opportunity zone. We simply wanted in the policy to state the fact that we have been designated to be in an opportunity zone because this is an opportunity for certain kinds of development, and we just thought it would be good to put it in the policy and lay it out there that it's available to potential developers. Lastly, it's, as we've stated before, always been the council's right to deviate from the policy, but we're proposing some language that just states that very plainly, but also which requires an applicant who is requesting more than the policy calls for to state very clearly their rationale for requesting more extraordinary measures than are called for in the policy. So those are the changes that we are recommending to you tonight, and staff or Mr. Webster would be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Sounds like the resolution was drafted pretty craftily.
We got a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 14.
Conditional use permit, parking lot at 1815 Burlington. Bill number 7353, ordinance number 9150.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. This is the item of which you've had a fair amount of discussion earlier tonight. At this time, I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland, for a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This conditional use permit is for the property at 1815 Burlington, which is currently vacant. They are proposing to construct a temporary parking, paid parking lot in that area. Temporary parking areas as the primary use of the lot are a conditional use in most of the city, including in the central area of the Burlington Corridor Overlay District. Staff recommendations on applications such as this are based on the criteria that are set in the zoning ordinance. and staff did recommend a denial of the CUP based on its incompatibility with the policies of the city's master plan, inconsistency with the intent of the C2 zoning district, and a lack of compliance with other applicable regulations in the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission held their required public hearing on December 6th, and 2 people spoke in favor of the CUP. The Planning Commission voted 3-2 to recommend approval of the permit to the City Council, subject to 7 conditions, which are included in the council memo. The number 5, 6, and 7 in the memo are our standard conditions that are included in almost every conditional use permit. 1 through 4 were specific to the application before you tonight. 1 is that the applicant shall remove unused concrete aprons on Burlington and along Buchanan and restore sidewalk in place of those aprons along Buchanan Street. Number 2 concerns signage, that signage will comply with the sign regulations of the city's section 15.44 of the city's municipal code and shall not be placed in the public right-of-way. 3 is that landscaping beds shall include appropriate vegetation. And number 4 is that the final site plan will be submitted to the Planning Commission for approval pursuant to the requirements of the C2 zoning district. If the council were to approve the conditional use permit, there would be one final review before the Planning Commission before construction could commence. If you have any further questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Are they planning to resurface that parking lot or just remove the concrete barriers and restripe?
That lot is part of the lot is concrete, but part of it is grass. So they would have to pave the portion that's unpaved in order to construct the parking lot.
Do the additional 4 conditions that the Planning Commission proposed, does that sway staff's opinion on the recommendation?
No, it does not.
Seems the applicants were pretty amenable to making sure that it was done in a correct and possible way for the.
A question on it. Do they have to have a fence around in that zone, around the parking lot?
The Burlington Corridor Overlay District does require screening, which could be done by a fence. The C2 zoning district, which is the underlying zoning district, requires a 3-foot courtyard wall between parking areas and the street. They are not planning to provide either of those, as shown in the site plan.
Okay.
First reading.
Can I ask one more question? Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a sense of staff recommendation on this. I understand what you're saying about the 4 additional conditions. Is the main concern from staff the congruency with our overarching master plan and what's happening with the Burlington corridor?
I would say on this application, the main concern of staff is that the application doesn't comply with the landscaping and screening requirements that are established in the code, and so I cannot recommend anything but denial.
Would this application affect our Burlington corridor, like our construction and our bike path and everything like that, or not?
Our construction is planned to occur primarily in the right-of-way.
In the right-of-way.
And so we're not planning to make any improvements on this private property.
Right. Okay.
Need to be a motion.
Got a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Need a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit to permit a temporary parking area as a conditional use at 1815 Burlington, subject to the conditions incorporated herein.
I move that bill number 7353 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9150.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Pierce.
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
No.
An ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit to permit a temporary parking area as a conditional use at 1815 Burlington, subject to the conditions incorporated herein.
Number 15.
Number 15, immobilization of vehicles for unpaid parking tickets. Bill number 7354, ordinance number 9151.
Harry? Thanks, sir. I'll call on the police chief, Steve Beamer.
Thank you, sir. At the November 20th meeting of the City Council, there was a discussion regarding the use of immobilization devices to help scofflaws be accountable for unpaid parking tickets. And at that meeting, there was a consensus to move forward with this initiative and to make the limit for unpaid parking tickets to be 2 or more before a immobilization device or tow could occur. So based upon the consensus from that night, Mr. Barzee crafted the ordinances necessary to put the various pieces in place, including the provisions for contesting a parking ticket, the provisions for contesting a tow if it were to occur, and the ordinance that allows for the immobilization of vehicles. So all of those ordinances exist tonight. It should be noted that the start date for this new process will be January 1, 2019, if the council chooses to approve this tonight. We're starting with a clean slate for a couple of reasons. Number one, we need to alter the language on parking tickets so that this process is on the back of the ticket, so people will be aware of what the outcomes may be if they fail to pay a ticket. It will also inform them of if they choose to contest a ticket, that they can do so, and the information concerning that. So we need to change the information on the parking ticket itself. And because this is a dramatic change from where we have been, we decided not to go retroactive and look at those tickets for preceding years that have not been paid. One of the questions that the council had that night was regarding the number of violators or outstanding tickets that existed. Page 2 of my memo, with the help of Ms. Nakahodo, we were able to demonstrate in 2017 and 2018 the number of tickets written on a license plate that had 2 or more, 3 or more, 4 or more, how many of those were written, how many of them are still outstanding. So it gives the council a sense of just exactly how many of these violations we may be dealing with when it comes to immobilization or impoundment. Now, mind you, this is a $15 fine. How many did not take care of it? We believe that the municipal court is increasing the fine to $50 the first of the year as well. How much of an impact that has on unpaid tickets, we have yet to see. But the information is before you tonight. The ordinances have been prepared for your consideration.
Well, I appreciate reading through this. The due process part of this really made me feel a little bit better in regard to it, reading through the whole ordinance. But I was opposed before, and I will still remain opposed to the 2 tickets. I'm opposed to the ordinance because I think that 2 tickets is too few. I think it should be at least 3.
I also really appreciate the data. Thank you for that. I know I was big on that, and it really does help me to understand kind of the perspective of what's happening. So thank you for your work on that. I am also a little uncomfortable with the 2 tickets. I do want to ask a question about that. So if someone has an outstanding ticket and then they get a second ticket and the next day, can something happen? I mean, or is there a period of time after that second ticket is marked or kind of considered due and outstanding?
They have I believe it's 10 days, 10 business days from the time the ticket is written until they have to pay it. So no, we would not immobilize or impound in a vehicle until the violator has had ample opportunity to come in and satisfy the fines.
Originally, didn't you say that 3 tickets, and then we changed it to 2? Would it be better?
Columbia,
Columbia,
which is who we went to seek guidance since they had this program in place, their limit is 4. Staff recommended as few as 3, then the city council decided to take it down to 2, and that was the consensus that we worked off of that night. But it was obviously not everyone was in agreement with the number of 2, but that's the way the document was prepared based upon the information received that night.
Could we amend that to say 3? And would that?
Yes, I would.
I'm fine. I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to express that I was not comfortable with only 2, since Columbia, which has always been known as College Town, USA, gives 4. And I can imagine how many
Oh, yeah.
unpaid parking tickets are in College Town, USA, Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah. I would prefer 4, and you could sway me to 3.
I concur. I'd prefer 4, but I would be okay with 3.
I'd assume to have 3 myself, but I would go with whatever, just something we can get something started, get it going.
Exactly.
Everybody good with 3?
No.
What do you want?
Well, I'm fine with the 2, but I mean, I think if you get a parking ticket, you don't take care of it.
Mr. Mayor,
Break the law, you break the law. I mean, I'm not going to vote for 3 or 4. I'm good with 2, so I won't support 3 or 4.
Mr. Mayor, the appropriate way to do this, that if someone would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance to go from 2 to 3 or to 4, or whatever number it is, and there's a second, then there's just an oral vote on that. And then then there would be a motion to approve this, if it passed, as amended.
I'll make a motion for 4 or more tickets.
And I second that motion.
All in favor? We do an all in favor?
Call the roll.
Okay.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes?
Councilmember Sanders?
No.
Councilmember Clevenger?
No.
Councilmember Stewart?
No.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
No.
Councilmember DeLong?
No.
5 to 3.
What do you want, 8 or 1? You want 8 or 1?
I move that we amend it to 3 tickets.
Go around again.
I need a second.
Oh, I'm a second. I can second. Second. Done.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
No.
Councilmember Clevenger?
I'll go with 3, yes.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
No.
Councilmember DeLong?
Nope.
That's 5 to 3, 4 to 3.
5-3.
So now I need Okay, that was a 5 to 3 vote to go with 3. So now we need a motion to pass the ordinance as amended.
For 3.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Should we do a call roll on that, or should
Then
we-
I need a all in favor.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
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 5-3.
It's still 5 to 3. Okay,
Do you need to move to,
no, I need
for
to
bill
read
number?
it. I need to read
Okay,
it.
but then, okay, well then you'll tell us what you need.
An ordinance amending Chapter 10.48, Stopping, Standing, and Parking of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, as it relates to parking tickets, and fixing the time when this ordinance shall become effective.
I move that bill number 7354 be placed on second and final reading and passed as ordinance number 9151.
Second.
Call the roll.
As amended.
Yes.
I knew there was something I was missing there.
What's
But
the,
the ordinance can stay the same as 9151, but it's as amended. Okay.
As amended
what's the
with-
number of tickets?
3.
3, all right.
Okay. Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
No.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
No.
Councilmember DeLong?
No.
Okay, 5 to 3.
Herding cats.
Moving right along.
We got to read it one more.
Oh, yes, I need to read it again. Thank you. An ordinance amending Chapter 10.48, Stopping, Standing, and Parking of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, as it relates to parking tickets, and fixing the time when this ordinance shall become effective. Okay. Number 16. Purchase of property for rabbit hole parking, Bill number 7360, ordinance number 9157.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. November 21st, 2017, the City Council approved the submission of a project application to the Missouri Development Finance Board, the MDFB, in support of the Rabbit Hole, which you're all familiar with. As noted at the time, a successful application needs to include a city commitment to the project. The application stated, pending approval of the MDFB tax credits, the City of North Kansas City applicant has pledged $200,000 in cash and/or in-kind contributions to help secure proximal off-street visitor parking for the project. And the fiscal year 2019 Convention and Tourism Fund does include $200,000 for this purpose. The City and Rabbit Hole have worked together to negotiate the purchase of a property owned by Camel Rock Investments, LLC, located in the vicinity of 13th and Knox, for the purchase price of $180,000. This is expected to result in the construction of a parking lot containing approximately 60 off-street parking spaces. That property is currently gravel. It will need to be improved to the city parking lot standards, and funds for the improvement of the parking lot have not yet been budgeted, and they would require a future budget amendment, which we'd bring to you in the future, assuming you pass the ordinance tonight. It is intended that the city would recover its costs to design and construct the parking lot by means of a long-term lease purchase arrangement with the Rabbit Hole, which we'd begin negotiating again, assuming you pass this ordinance tonight. So at this time, we do recommend passage of this ordinance authorizing the purchase of the property from Camel Rock Investments, LLC.
First reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving real estate purchase and sale agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri as buyer and Camel Rock Investments, LLC as seller for certain real property generally located south of 14th Avenue and east of Knox Street in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7360 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9157.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Pierce.
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving real estate purchase and sale agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri as buyer and Camel Rock Investments, LLC as seller for certain real property generally located south of 14th Avenue and east of Knox Street in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Number 17.
Task order number 2 for Armor Road Complete Street Project Resolution number 18-075.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
Last November, the City Council adopted the Armor Road Complete Street Plan, which called for improvements to Armor Road to make it a safe travel environment for all users of the street. We entered into a contract with WSP last March for engineering services to prepare construction documents for our first phase of construction. Unfortunately, when we opened bids last September, all 3 of our bids were above both the engineer's estimate and the budgeted amount we had for the project, and so no contract was awarded. We discussed this project during our budget workshops, and Council indicated support for staff's recommendation that the Phase 1 improvements be rebid in the spring of 2019, and that we bring forward a future budget amendment for the Phase 1 construction budget so that it would total approximately $450,000. That would be close to adding the unexpended funds from last year to what was budgeted in this year's budget for the Phase 2 improvements, and then we would shift back Phases 2, 3, and 4 a year. We believe that rebidding the project in the spring, which would be the beginning instead of the end of the construction season, will help us get more competitive bids. But we also would like to work with the engineer to identify some ways that we might make the bids more competitive, and including investigating whether there are components of this that might be installed by public works staff. So this task order entails a little bit more engineering work to allow us to revise the plans for bidding with an eye towards rebidding this project in February. We do have Jay Aber from WSP here tonight. If you had any questions about this, I would ask that you approve this task order. I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Well, it's gone 18 months, right?
I'm sorry.
This was reviewed, and then now it's gone 18 months till now, right?
Are you going back to the adoption of the plan
No,
date?
I'm confused on this one, I'll tell you. During the September 2018 budget workshop,
Yeah, but that's only a year.
council indicated support, but that was September 2018.
That was 3 months ago.
Yeah, okay, I was thinking 17. You're right, okay, my fault.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 18.
Award of contract, professional services for GIS update, resolution number 18-080.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
We maintain a geographic information system that contains both aerial photography and data files that provide us with geographic and spatial information about the city. It includes our streets, water lines and hydrants and valves, our sanitary sewer lines, streetlights, sidewalks, building footprints, bridges, the Missouri River. There's a lot of data, and this is heavily used by Public Works and Community Development, and it's also something that we share with consultants and contractors who are working with us as needed for projects. This GIS data received its last large-scale update in 2013, and since that time, 5, almost 6 years ago, we've done a lot of work in the city that's not included in our GIS data. Staff does update the data in bits and pieces as we're able to, but we do not have the time or expertise to undertake a major update to this data. We originally planned the update project as a 2-phase project with 1 phase budgeted last year and 1 phase budgeted this year. The request for proposals was not ready in time for a contract to be awarded in 2018, during the 2018 fiscal year. And again, during the September budget workshops, Council indicated support for our recommendation to combine these 2 phases into 1 this year, and that we would do a future budget amendment. We released a request for proposals a few months ago, and 3 firms responded. We identified Midland GIS Solutions as the firm most qualified to provide this update. They've done a lot of work for local governments in the area, and they all spoke highly of their work. There are 3 phases to the work involved here: flying a new aerial photography of the city and our immediately adjacent area, updating geographic features such as streets, curbs, buildings, the river, and then doing a comprehensive update to the data that's included for the water system. So that portion is coming out of the water fund. And the rest would be paid for out of the gaming fund. So you have a contract before you to approve the work, and then there's a budget amendment for the portion that would be coming out of the gaming fund that's also included. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I think this is vital for the city. I mean, One North going on in Burlington and Armour, we've got to keep this up to date. I'd be in approval. I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 19, is that kind of all?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It's very efficient.
Very good.
Are you keeping up?
I'm trying. Number 20, ordinance amendments regarding wireless facilities, Chapter 17.84, conditional uses, wireless communication facilities and related structures and equipment. Bill number 7357, ordinance number 9154.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
So, on a totally different topic, we have for a couple of years now worked with outside legal counsel on regulations concerning wireless communications. The legal landscape dealing with wireless telecommunications continues to shift, and the technology continues to evolve. And we have made amendments to the zoning ordinance and to the chapter of the code dealing with right-of-way each of the last 2 years. And this would be the 3rd year that we're making amendments to keep up with technology and changes in the larger legal landscape. So these amendments and the amendments in the next ordinance that will be before you are both intended primarily to respond to the Uniform Small Wireless Facility Deployment Act that was enacted by the state of Missouri this year and has an effective date of January 1st, 2019. In this ordinance, these are amendments dealing specifically with the zoning ordinance. These amendments don't make wholesale changes to the way we regulate wireless facilities in the zoning ordinance, but are primarily intended to refine things to comply with state law. The biggest change here is clarification to how we deal with fast-track applications. That provides an incentive for providers to deploy less obtrusive facilities. So we're trying to incentivize people to, smaller or disguised or hidden facilities that aren't so noticeable to people by making those applications quicker to be processed. If you had any questions about this set of amendments, I would be happy to answer those or to take my best attempt.
So is this kind of settled down now with the state coming in and setting their laws, or is the FCC still tinkering around with further regulation?
I'm not sure I'd be willing to go out on a limb and say either way. I would not be surprised if we do some more tweaks at some point in the future. But we don't know for sure.
Thank you.
This will keep us as up to date as we
Yes,
can be at
today.
at this moment. Yeah.
And I would also just say, because we're in the midst of updating the zoning ordinance, we intend to take this section out of the existing ordinance and put it in the new ordinance with no changes, because we've been working with outside legal counsel who, are working to make sure that this is the best ordinance language we can have.
That's good.
Ready for first reading?
Did you finish your first reading? Second.
Me. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending Chapter 17 of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri to adopt regulations relating to small wireless communications facilities.
I move that bill number 7357 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9154.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance amending Chapter 17 of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri to adopt regulations relating to small wireless communications facilities.
21.
Ordinance amendments regarding wireless facilities, Chapter 12.08, Utility Facilities and Excavations in City Rights-of-Way. Bill number 7356, ordinance number 9153.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance amending Chapter 12.08 of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri related to regulations for right-of-way management.
I move that bill number 7356 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9153.
Second.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance amending Chapter 12.08 of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri related to regulations for right-of-way management.
Number 22.
North Kansas City YMCA capital expenditure, boiler repair, resolution number 18-077.
Is that Eric?
Thanks, sir. According to the facility operating and cooperative agreement between the city and the YMCA, the city is responsible for any cost, repair, or replacement in the facility that's a capitalized asset expenditure, which is defined as an expenditure of over $5,000, for which there's a useful life of at least 2 years. The YMCA has submitted a request for approval of a capitalized asset expenditure for repair of one of the building's boilers. Do recommend council approval of the resolution approving that capital expense.
Do we have any idea of the extent of the repairs that are being done and how long those repairs should affect or positively affect this boiler?
Well, it should, repair of the boiler would hopefully keep it going for another several years at least. My understanding is there is some urgency to this. They were anxious to get this on as quickly as they
There is. I've
could.
heard about it over
Yeah.
there. Just was curious as to if we're spending that money, if it's, like, does this, I just wanted a perspective on the useful life of that boiler. If we're fixing a dying boiler or.
Well, they do believe that it's worthwhile to repair the boiler at this time rather than spend the money for
But we'll trust
replacement.
their judgment. And if we're talking about a boiler again next year, we can talk about that again. So. I think, yeah, we'll have another conversation.
There are three. So
Yes, if we're talking about this boiler
hopefully it won't
next
be
year.
this boiler.
Right, okay, gotcha.
Move to approve.
Second.
Aye.
License agreement, installation of monitoring wells on city right-of-ways, Bill number 7355, ordinance number 9152.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is this are these wells on Quick Trip property, or?
No.
How come they're involved?
I'll ask Mr. Barzee to provide a staff report.
Okay. I'll start by answering your question. They're involved at the direction of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. A number of years ago, on their prior property, there was an underground storage tank that leaked, and they need to monitor the groundwater, and that's what this is a request of, to put in 3 additional monitoring wells within city right-of-way, but inside the curb and not out into the street at the request of our Public Works Director that it be done that way. They're necessary for them to be able to continue to monitor, what's going on. Like I said, there's already 24 monitoring wells that they've done because of this, and they need a few other places to be able to have them. And it's very common. We have a number of them by others down in the PID and in other industrial areas of our city.
Okay, I understand.
So this just gives them the right to, we're giving them the right to install those, have those monitoring wells installed?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And they don't affect the sidewalk or any kind of pedestrian?
No.
'Cause it's
Looks like they're right next to it.
No,
Right next to the curb.
I should have put a big picture up, but on the last page of of Mr. Hoover's memo on page 3, there is a photograph of one that's already in effect in that area. All it is, it's a small PVC pipe that goes down 20, 30 feet, and then they have to have a collar around the top to stabilize it, and there's a metal plate on it. And we're asking that they be placed in that, what I call the parkway area, but just inside the curb line.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Quick Trip Corporation regarding the installation and use of certain groundwater monitoring wells in city right-of-way for groundwater sampling.
I move that bill number 7355 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9152.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Quick Trip Corporation regarding the installation and use of certain groundwater monitoring wells in city right-of-way for groundwater sampling.
24.
Budget amendment, purchase of Lot 2, Northgate Village Retail Center, second plat. Resolution number 18-076.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. At a special meeting that the City Council held last week, the council approved an ordinance to enable the purchase of Lot 2, Northgate Village Retail Center, second plat. This is property somewhat commonly known to us as the former Russell Stover lot in Northgate Village, retail part of the development. This purchase was deemed to be in the city's interest, as it'll be more likely that the area will develop at its highest and best use in the future. The purchase price of the property is $225,000. This was not in the fiscal year 2019 budget, so we now have a budget resolution before you. It's in the amount of $235,000 because there are a few incidental expenses which that amount will more than cover, but we're not, it's a few $1,000s more. So that's why we've just added a little bit to that amount. So we do now recommend that you amend the budget in that manner by passing the resolution.
Question?
And we're the purchase price of $225,000 is a lot of money for a lot, but it was listed at a much higher price.
$395,000 it was listed at.
$395,000 was listed.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 25.
Approval of contract, replacement of library HVAC rooftop unit, resolution number 18-082.
Thanks, sir. The fiscal year 2019 gaming fund budget includes $108,000 for the replacement of 2 rooftop units for HVAC. One in the server room here at City Hall and one at the library. The library is the more urgent need at the moment. We did open sealed bids for the replacement of the unit at the library on December 12th. The bid submitted by Edward McDowell Incorporated EMI in the amount of $86,650 was deemed by staff to be the lowest and best bid. So we now have a resolution before you approving a contract with EMI for the replacement of the HVAC rooftop unit at the library.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Planning Sustainable Places Grant Agreement, resolution number 18-081.
Eric.
Thanks, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
Last spring, the council approved a resolution supporting our application to the Mid-America Regional Council's Planning Sustainable Places program for grant funds to support the development of a bicycle master plan. The goal of that project is to identify ways to strengthen the environment for biking as part of our overall transportation network by identifying and filling gaps in our bicycling network, identifying other supportive infrastructure needs, and developing a policy framework to guide ongoing decision-making regarding bicycling as a transportation mode. Our application scored well, and in September, the MARC Board approved our full request for $58,000 of grant funds. The program does require a local match, and the city budgeted $25,000 in this year's fiscal budget for this project. Before you tonight is a grant agreement between the city and MARC that allows us to move forward with them as a partner. They handle the administration of the program, including the contracting, invoicing, and the federal reporting requirements, which is quite nice for us. They also did this with the Burlington and Armour Road Complete Street projects, which were also completed with Planning Sustainable Places funds. So this grant agreement allows us to move forward with MARC on this project. We have already gone through the procurement process. MARC issued the RFP for this in October. We held interviews with top-ranked firms in November, and the selection committee included city staff and Councilmember DeLong. We chose a team headed by Bike Walk KC as the preferred consultant on this project, and the contract with our selected consultant will be on the MARC Board's December agenda so that we can start work next month. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
27.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through December 14th, 2018. Bill number 7359, ordinance number 9156.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't know if that was majority.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through December 14th, 2018.
Move that bill number 7359 be placed on second and final reading and passed as ordinance number 9156.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through December 14th, 2018.
Mr. Eric.
Thank you, sir. In addition to the upcoming city items of note report that's in your packet, just would note that this is the last meeting of this calendar year. A quick note about your first two meetings in next year. Your first regular council meeting will be on Wednesday, January 2nd. That was moved up because your normal date would have been Tuesday, January 1st. And then you do have a special work session scheduled on Tuesday, January 8th, and that is to consider the Harris Charitable Fund donations allocations. So staff would like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Back at you.
Valerie?
My first. I have no comments other than I will not be here for the first council meeting of the new year. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Bell?
Nothing tonight.
Just a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I wanted to congratulate Timothy Roberts on his appointment to the Planning Commission. Didn't know who that was, and when I showed up here and met him tonight, I was like, that's Moon. That's the guy we call. So I'm glad that he's getting involved, so welcome to him. Again, Merry Christmas. And I wanted to say that we had a nice time celebrating someone's birthday this last weekend. He turned 80 years old, our mayor did, and had a nice time at the Parks Building, a great venue for a party. And so great job by the planners of that. And
Even had some money in one of his cards.
so other than that, I think that's it.
I don't have much. It was a great party if you was there. Got to meet a lot of people that retired, that we've known for years, and some new people. And got to sing Happy Birthday. So that's all I have, Fred.
Happy birthday last weekend. It was a nice party. I was just going to say, we had, what was that? Last regular council meeting, we passed Resolution 18071, which is on the Walker Road 210 intersection improvement. And what we passed on that was a study, and it's a question. That was $12,000. But there's a budget of $357,552 on that. Is that those? I'm asking those as questions to confirm it.
That sounds correct to me.
Okay. The thing is, recently on 2 nights and one time during the day, I went down there and was monitoring the traffic. I was down there in the evening during rush hour, 4:30 to 5:15 on December 13th, which was Thursday. And then on Monday, December 17th, from 4:40 p.m. till 5:20 p.m., I went down there and monitored the traffic. Now, in the evening, I've noticed, like it was said, when the traffic comes out of I'll call it the east entrance of the hospital, which is onto Walker Road, there's a little delay occasionally. But I didn't have a watch and definitely didn't have a stopwatch. So I had to ballpark the time and by counting. And I counted 17 seconds was the delay, but I would round it up to at least probably 20 seconds. And that's all the delay that there was for any cars. The longest delay, and then that didn't occur very often. So I'm going to be interested to see what the study reveals. And then today from 7:15 a.m. to 8:17 a.m., I was down there at 210 on Walker and monitored the eastbound traffic that would go east on 210 and then turn left to go north on Walker. And at least during that time frame of the rush hour, I didn't see only one time on one sequence of the lights did I see a car that was unable to get into the left turn lane. And if you remember, some people, if you may remember, that used to only have one lane for a left turn from eastbound 210 to go north, turn left and go north on Walker Road. And since then, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, that left turn lane is now 2 lanes. So the traffic was pretty smooth. One thing I've noticed, and I have reservations of saying a lot of this because this is not conclusive, but the real traffic backup is not so much eastbound on 210 at Walker as it is eastbound on 210 at Vernon.
That's right.
And Taney.
That's right.
That's where the problems are.
Yeah.
But, it's going to be interesting to see. I just wanted to point that out. I was trying to do.
I've turned hundreds of times on Walker, never had any problems.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what the study reveals on this. I don't know what could be done about 210 and Taney. That really, I've experienced some problems there. Or 210 in Vernon, I mean.
Vernon.
So, and that's all I have. Did I wish everyone happy holidays? If I didn't, I'll do it now.
Down there again, hope you had a good birthday with everybody. Hope everybody has a safe holiday. I'll see you all next year. And hopefully next year is great for everybody. That's all.
I want to congratulate Councilmember Clevenger on his appointment to the National League of Cities Community and Economic Development Federal Advocacy Committee.
Way to go.
It's a great way to network with other elected officials around the country, as well as advocate not just for our citizens, but you kind of end up advocating for everyone in the region here. So congratulations on that, and look forward to hearing your positive results of that. And other than that, that's it.
I'd like to mention the Parks and Rec project, which was amazing with the scarves and gloves, and there's still things hanging at the fences and in the parks. I was out really early. I saw it on the news, and I saw the news people there, and I thought that Parks and Rec was really well represented in that article, and I think it's a wonderful thing that this community does. Yeah. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone.
Merry Christmas. Let's move it on.
31, consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes Section 610.0212.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman? Yes. Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.